which is very important for our story. For people who saw my video about Atlantis, they know that the reflection in krateru-Energie is reflected in the firmament as Saturn. Let's make a 3D picture of the crater and move the sunlight. And then you see it's a crater in a crater in a crater. Let's take the Atlantis map and put it on the crater. So Atlantis is Energie, aka Saturn. Let's take a look at the science fiction version. You all probably know the story about this hexagonal shape on Saturn. So what is it? Let's take an example with this child's game. Which form fits in what form? Now let's compare it with the bigger Earth. And let's suggest that every crater has its own electrical pattern. So our crater has the toroid pattern, with in the center the Eye of Horus. You could almost compare it with a left brain and a right brain. Now every biological form created in this crater is following the toroid pattern. So every life form created in Energie is following the counter-rotating pyramid form. That gives us two craters and two electrical patterns. Well, you know the story. The crater Energie, Atlantis, is flooded. And the whole so-called Egyptian Atlantean civilization is migrating to our crater. One boat in particular caught my attention. The bark of Nuank. What is this energy form? Well, that's for my next video. But what I know is our problems began when the gods landed on Planet of the Apes. This is a battle between two energy patterns. When I was making this video, I came to another solution of our heliocentered system. Scientists on Atlantis were experimenting with their counter-rotating devices, and they accidentally created a chain reaction. This shockwave put the Earth out of orbit and created a gigantic tsunami. It also created an RGB effect that would make the Sun and the Moon both reflections of the blue Earth.
gevlamste.
The snake Apep. We are not looking for an animal, of course. We are looking for an energy form. In a previous video, The Eye of Ra, I showed you there are two energy forms in our crater. The parasitic one, the double pyramid system, and the 124875 system. Now let's put some of these systems on top of each other and draw a line. That looks familiar? Take a look at another phenomenon, the analemma. As the moon is the reflection of Earth, take a look at the movement of the moon. But to see the exact movement of the moon, I did some motion tracking. You can clearly see the same 8 form. Now let's do an experiment. Put a laser on a right rotating ball and let it make the exact movement as the moon. What line would it be drawing in the firmament? That looks like the exact form of Apep. The sun was Ra's great barge, which sailed through the sky from dawn to dusk, and then descended into the underworld. As it navigated through the darkness of night, it was attacked by Apep, who sought to kill Ra and prevent sunrise. To prevent this, Ra had 6 curses: spitting upon Apep, defiling Apep with the left foot, taking a knife to smite Apep, and putting a fire on Apep. Well, they really must be scared of Apep. Here we see the sun god Ra in the form of a great cat slaying the snake Apep. Let's take a look at our crater and the organic energy. You have the tree of life created by the Apep energy. On top of this energy was put the parasitic energy. Ra is spilling the blood of Apep. Osiris, ruler of the underworld, defending himself against Apep with the crook and flail. Here you have the crook, but what is the flail? To understand this, we have to go to the story of Adam and Eve. You have the tree, the Taurus. You have the snake, the energy, but what about Adam and Eve? Remember, the story in the Bible, the Genesis, is the story of the gene of Isis. It is the story of the parasite. Atom makes a clone of himself, Adam. Did Atom make a female mirror image of himself? It might be coincidence, but the mirroring of Atom is Mutter, Moeder, mother. Adam and Eve had 3 children, Seth, Cain and Abel. Let's take a closer look at the story of Cain and Abel. Remember, in a previous video I explained the system of a galvanic cell, where the zinc anode is losing weight and the copper cathode is gaining matter. Cain represents the cathode, the copper. Abel represents the anode, the zinc. The story of Cain and Abel is the story of an electrical process. On one side you have the copper, the cathode, Cain, the crook, and on the other side you have the zinc, anode, Abel. So how would you represent Abel then? Well, remember the Tower of Babel, the Twin Towers, were in my view the negative pole of an electrical circuit. It were the rods of the fasces. That makes of Abel the negative pole, the rod. So this instrument, in my view, is not a flail. Let's take a look at Mithras. Mithras and Osiris are the same person in my view. The cane and the rod, the positive, the negative. With Mithras you see the sword and the torch, so the torch are the rods. Another depiction of Mithras, and here again Mithras with the rods. So here is the story. Mithras is putting one pole into the energetic center of the torus. Rods on the left, rods on the right, and this electrical system is creating the dome. This system also creates the reflection of the sun and the moon. Here we see it again, but in this version Mithras is coming out of the egg. Why the egg? Well, an explanation could be, you take the parasitic system, it creates a dome. This dome reflects the form of the earth into the firmament. Maybe the organic system is also creating a dome, but a different one. So maybe in the EPEP system you would perceive the reflection of Earth as an egg, the serpent and the cosmic egg. Let's take a look at the Hadron Collider, or should we say the Hydra Collider. The Hydra was a mythical snake decapitated by Heracles, Hercules, Conan the Barbarian. In Egypt we see depictions of how they are tapping into Apep. How are they doing it now? Let's put the map of CERN on top of our crater. Take a look at the 6. When you compare our brain with the form of the crater, it points straight at our pineal gland. That is no coincidence. So the parasites are tapping into the energy of the Apep snake. So what is happening now in the times of confusion? Is this figure turning left or is it turning right? Well, both are possible. Depends on how you are using your brain. I have seen it go in both ways. The left turning brain is saying to the right turning brain, "Oh, you are conspiracy theorists." And the right turning brain is saying to the left turning brain, "You are all sheeple." So they must be both right. Well, if you compare our brain with our crater, remember our crater was flooded in 1259. That means half of the crater is frozen. That means our Apep brain is in complete disorder.
One of the most amazing theological, musical, and poetic ways, the unique.
Take a look again at the parasitic energy. The two snakes, red snake, blue snake, red pyramid, blue pyramid, and on top the wings of the parasite. Naga and Nagini, the red snake tongue with the blue background. Two pyramids and two snakes. So when you have enlightenment in this system, the Kundalini experience, you will always encounter winged beings, aliens, gods, angels, elves, outer body experiences, chakra activation, moving up to the fifth dimension, whatever that may be. All these events are happening in the counter-rotating pyramid system, the parasitic bubble. Compare that with the 3 Apep energy.
And that gives you a sense of superiority in your enlightenment and so on. But there is a different form of, I won't go into it because you all are eager. I am not touching it. That can only happen when the self is not. Then there is a totally different kind of energy to keep the mind fresh, young, alive. And that can only come when there is absolutely no sense of the self. Right? Obvious reason. Because the self, the me, the center, is in constant conflict, right? Wanting, not wanting, creating dualities, opposing desires, this constant struggle that's going on. As long as that struggle is going on, there is a wastage of energy, obviously. When that struggle is not, there is totally different kind of energy taking place.
we have the movements. In the movements, we can feel energy going through the body according to the arms and legs gestures in the form.
There are other times when the left hand actually mirrors the right hand. And so you do exactly the opposite just to create a sense of flow. There are other times when the left hand really does things that are additive.
Buddha is showing us the energetic center of our crater. But beware of the parasites, showing us the real energetic center, but at the same time introducing a new one. Another parasitic attempt, but with the wrong energetic center. The pentagram, that seems to be a shortcut. Inside the temple of Hathor in Dendera. On the right you see this image. Take a side view of our crater Sulpicius. I think the bark is our crater. Zoom in on the energetic center, the lotus, and on top of it, of course, the primordial snake, Apep. This was the original electrical pattern. Zoom out and go to the left through the parasitic overlay, the two-snake system, the two domes, counter-rotating, zoom in on the Ka figure and the Ba figure, of course. So you have the two figures, Shu and Gep. Shu is the Ka and Gep is the Ba. This is the Egyptian version of Cain and Abel. Shu is the Ka holding up the firmament. Here you see the double firmament. Take a look again at the Egyptian creation myth. To the Jew, the Akhet. In the Hathor temple you have another depiction of the Jew and the Akhet, the side view of our crater, and on top you have Nut, the firmament, where the sun and the moon are created. Let's continue our quest for Ra, or should we say Ra, the Phoenix. Let's start with the explanation of the word Israel. Is, of course, comes from Isis and Osiris, the two pyramids. Ra is the center of the counter-rotating pyramids, the eye of the vortex. So what about El? Let's take the labyrinth, which is in my view the electrical motherboard of the counter-rotating mechanism. El, the 12 angels. When you count the corridors in the labyrinth, you have 11 horizontal ones. The last vertical one is the Archangel Michael, which is the closest to God. In the center of the labyrinth, you have the box. On top of the box, you have the two cherubims, Sandalphon, the female, and Metatron, the male. So when you die, let's assume there is a spirit leaving the body. The spirit is sucked into the counter-rotating mechanism and is making a spiritual journey to the center of this mechanism. Several books have been written to guide you in this long travel. Finally, you arrive, and there you meet the god of the underworld, Osiris. Have you been a good person or a bad person? Anubis is way in your heart. If you were a bad guy, you will be eaten in hell by Amut. This, of course, is the Catholic story of Jesus waiting for you in heaven. The Archangel Michael will weigh your soul, and if you were a bad person, you will go to hell. We can clearly see the double pyramid here, the Ka and the Ba. Let's go back to the moment where you are sucked into the pyramid. Now you are in the box and you have a good chat with God. And God says, why don't you go back? Learn from your mistakes. Try again. So you return in free will. Possibility 2. You are in the box, but you refuse to listen to God. So God throws you in the pit. The burning pit of hell. Now you end up in the Taurus, and there you reincarnate, so to speak. So the only function of religion is to keep you in Ra-incarnation. The only thing that is keeping you in Ra-incarnation is the fear of God and the fear of hell. Let's take a look at some dirty tricks of religion. You have the hostia and the chalice, and the hostia is the eye of the Taurus, the eye of Horus. Let's take a look at some Catholic black magic.
Lam God staat weg, neemt de zonden der wereld. Lam God staat weg, neemt de zonden der wereld.
So you ritually destroy the consciousness of the Taurus by breaking the eye of Horus.
Zie dan het lam Gods, dat wegneemt de zonde uit deze wereld.
And what is next? Well, you let them eat it. And here another black magic trick. Put a black cross on the pineal gland. You slice the vortex. And it's not just Catholicism. Let's take a look at Mecca from the air, the region of the black box, the Kaaba. Here we go again. you recreate a miniature of our crater Earth and you ritually destroy it by putting a black box in it. That is what we call voodoo. For another example, let's return to the Kaaba. One of my viewers drew the attention to the word scarab. What is the scarab doing? He is collecting shit. Shit in Europe is called kaka. And this viewer said that in Hungarian, baba is egg. So the scarab is laying eggs in the shit of another organism. Mankind was living in perfect harmony with nature, but at a certain point in time we were parasited. So the apple might be the egg and the snake might be the scarab, just like the phoenix returns once in a while to lay an egg. Every year we celebrate our infection. Happy Easter! Let's go to another very important painting, one of the finest paintings in the world, for me, until now. This is not a lesson in art, but there is a very important element in this painting. Let's decode it. On the top of the painting you see the circles of Atlantis, Saturn, home of the parasite. On the bottom you have the octagon. When you have a top view on the counter-rotating mechanism, you have two squares. That forms the octagon, and in the center you have the eye of the vortex. In front of the altar you have Metatron and Sandalphon. The 12 archangels, the L, and on top of the box, of course, in the center of the counter-rotating mechanism, you have the Eye of Ra. So the painter of this painting, Jan van Eyck, was member of the Order of the Golden Fleece. Well, you can make of the Order of the Golden Fleece the Order of Ra. So now let's come to this important new element. So the Lamb of God is the Eye of Ra, but you see that the Eye of Ra is pouring blood into the Holy Grail, the Taurus. So what is happening here? Let's go back to the moment where it all happened. The Atlanteans land on crater Earth. The Atlanteans were later called the Egyptians. The Egyptians didn't live there. Let's take a look at the Hereford map. What did they look like? Let's take a look at their brains. A brain created in the torus field and a brain created in the counter-rotating pyramid field. So in my view, they were the elongated skull people. They were the pyramid builders, trying to recreate their own world in our crater. Let's take a look at the Pyramid of Cheops. I was trying to use the principle of the counter-rotating pyramids on the Pyramid of Cheops. You have a triangle and you have a box. So that was inviting me to reverse the other triangle and try to put it on its place. So I came up with 3 phases. I think that this must have been the original concept of the pyramid, with the Queen's chamber in the middle. But what was happening? I think that the rotation of Earth was creating the second triangle, and that triggered some kind of energy. But for what purpose? I read somewhere that Noah discovered the vineyard. Christ is changing water into wine. The Lamb of God is pouring blood into the Taurus. What is happening here? Then I had this crazy idea that maybe the wine is oil. Maybe the pyramid is changing water into oil. That reminded me of the story of Hitler and the Glocke. Hitler was experimenting with counter-rotating elements. Hitler was making some anti-gravity spacecraft, a UFO. But hey, it might have been very simple. He was just trying to make oil. And when you look at Google Maps, you see that the whole area around the pyramids is desert. Maybe this device removed all the water out of the ground and turned it into oil, which the Saudi Arabians are now pumping out of the ground. And take a look at this one. It's almost like the Nile Delta is a mirroring of the pyramid. So at a certain point in time, the rotation of Earth was changing, so the pyramid wasn't working anymore. They had to do some changes, and that is the reason I think they made a second hole in the core of the pyramid. And they had to make the king's chamber. But to prevent collapsing the pyramid, they had to make an enormous gallery to pull in the gigantic blocks to support the roof of the king's chamber. But still, the pyramid wasn't working enough, so I think that's the reason why they dug the hole in the ground, to calibrate the second pyramid. Let's return to the Kaaba, and here you see a counter-rotation, the rotation of Earth and the rotation of the people. But in the Kaaba you have an additional element, the black stone. So my question would be, were there black stones in the king's chamber? Is this crystal the Eye of Ra, the Lamb of God, creating the blood of Christ? Is it some kind of super intelligence? Where is it now?